Welcome to Armchair Physics. Today we're talking about airplanes, how they fly, understanding the physics, and what it even means to say you understand something. This actually comes up in the life of a working physicist because our goal, after all, is to understand nature. And the physics of flight is a nice little hook to talk about those deeper issues. So how does a plane fly? Well, one way to understand something is to relate it to something you already understand well. So for a plane, we can think about a fan. If I spin this little device, it pushes air down. I can feel it right now flowing on my hands. Well, we all know how a fan works, right? The blades are angled, and so as they spin, the air bounces off of it and gets pushed down. So a fan blows air, but if the fan is light enough, the back reaction force from that air will push the fan. Right? As the air goes down, the fan feels a recoil going up, just like if you're shooting a gun, you feel a recoil going back, or really any kind of locomotion, you're always pushing off of something. In this case, you're pushing off the air. And indeed, this little device can fly by doing exactly that. So I think we all understand how this device works. Now, what does this have to do with a plane? Well, it's actually pretty close to a plane. If I had just ripped off this side and twisted it around, if I had them both angled the same way, then if I had it moving forward, it would still blow air down. Because as it's moving forward, the air is bouncing off of it, being pushed down. And so if it's moving forward, it will still get some lift, pushing it up. And indeed, if you look at the design of any plane, it's just like that. The wings are angled very slightly down. And furthermore, planes fly tip back a little bit, so the angle is greater. They move like this. And so air bounces off the wing, goes down, pushing the plane up, giving it lift. In fact, you could turn a plane into one of these little toys fairly simply. You just take off one wing, turn it around, and now the angles are such that this device would fly if it rotated, as opposed to if it translated. In fact, the way the engines are attached, it would rotate if you turned it on, and it would fly just like the little toy here. All right, so have we explained how planes fly? Done and done, everything's clear? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Some of you might have heard other things like Bernoulli's principle, or maybe wingtip vortex shedding, or there's sort of all sorts of things that are going on, and you could talk about them. And to give you an example, let's do a cool little demo of the Bernoulli principle. The Bernoulli principle says that if air flows over at higher velocity, the higher velocity air will have lower pressure. This is basically conservation of energy. If the air is moving with some speed, that energy has to come from somewhere, and it comes from the random motions that create the pressure. And you can do this demo yourself. This paper is hanging down because of gravity, but if you blow over it, it'll raise. The moving air reduced the pressure on top. The pressure on the bottom is the same as the ambient air, and so it got pushed up because there's more air pushing it up from the bottom than pushing it down from the top. So do we need Bernoulli principle to understand flight? Well, we don't have to stop there. There's also very important effects in real planes having to do with the finite length of the wing. The fact that it has an end means turbulent little vortices flow off, and you'll see planes with wingtips designed to mitigate that, and so on. And you can go on and on and on. It's an arbitrarily complex device. Ultimately, it flies because, well, there's a fluid flowing over it. We know how to describe the fluid. There's a set of equations called Navier-Stokes equations, and you can solve them, and you'll find out that the plane flies. So how do we explain flight? Is it that the equations say it flies? Or is it just, well, there's a very simple device we understand? That ultimately is up to you. For me, I say I understand flight because I know that an airplane is really just one transformation away from a device that I definitely understand.